Good morning and welcome to another episode of The Traveling Therapist. I'm Lauren Perez, your LCSW, traveling across Lake County and Cook County, providing counseling services to individuals and families, crisis intervention, suicide prevention, you name it, I've probably done it. On today's episode, we're going to discuss a relatively simple crisis evaluation that I did. Believe it or not, we do get a lot of serious ones, but we do get a lot of very easy ones, for lack of a better word. Not everyone that we evaluate is actively suicidal. Not everybody that we evaluate hates life. Sometimes we just get kids who... and not everybody that we evaluate has trauma or is a victim of abuse or neglect in some way. Sometimes we just get kids who are struggling with growing up, growing pains, being an adolescent, and they don't know how to express themselves, and then they fall into sadness, hopelessness. Sometimes their parents assume, or they say, do you want to hurt yourself? And the kid's like, well, I thought about maybe I don't want to be here anymore, but not because they don't want to live, just because things suck right now and they don't want to be here. So that was the particular case that I evaluated recently. It was a 16-year-old girl, lives in a 2-parent household, has 2 older siblings and 1 younger sibling. Both of her older siblings have graduated from college. She's a junior in high school. She's doing well. She's got friends. She doesn't have a lot of friends, but she's got some. And she's struggling with anxiety. Not really sure where the anxiety came from, what it stems from. She didn't tell me she had any traumas. She didn't tell me that she had any experiences in her life that left a lasting mark in a negative way. So the presenting problem was a 16-year-old female woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. No plan, no suicide plan expressed or discussed, but she is just chronically hopeless apparently, and that she had never been inpatient. She had never taken meds before. They lived right around the corner from where I live, so it was very, very quick, easy trip, which doesn't happen very often. I get over to the home, her dad greets me and lets me in. I speak to all of them at first. Parents are Spanish speaking, but dad spoke enough English and Spanish that he could help bridge the gap with me and mom. And the 16-year-old girl also was communicating with her mother to help bridge the gap. She woke up from a nap today. She had been feeling sad for a while. She said that she was dealing with feeling sad for as long as she could remember. She didn't know what, at the time she said she didn't know what had sparked it or what was pushing her sadness. But that she just woke up feeling like her heart was racing heavy, feeling sad, kind of aimless wandering around her home. Her mom saw her dad wasn't home. Her mom saw her and asked what was wrong, and she said, I don't want to be here anymore. And her mom immediately was like, we have to get somebody here, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're unsure, obviously call for help. There's nothing wrong with a parent that just wants the best for their child. Sometimes we get parents who are overzealous, and every time a kid says something like that, the kid does it for attention. They don't care about the attention being negative or positive, but for them there's some gain there in getting their parents aroused and upset in that way. But so she tells her mom calls dad's okay, well, let's take her to the doctor. So they call the doctor's office, and the doctor gives them the number to the crisis line, and that's how I ended up at the house. So I started off talking with all of them. They gave me that background, and then I spoke with her alone. She says that like I said, she's got friends. She's not failing any classes. She has a C in one, I think it was a biology class. She got a C in her biology class, and that is stressing her out. Her other classes, she's doing well. Excuse me. That she has said in the past, maybe I don't want to be here anymore, but just because it's stressful. She is an overachiever, again, based on how her sisters have excelled in school. They apparently had straight A's. They apparently did very well in college. and they now have jobs and are taking care of themselves, she feels this pressure that if she doesn't do straight A's like they did, then she's not good enough. That if she doesn't get into the college that she wants to go to, which would be one of the colleges that one of her siblings went into, then she's not enough. She's not doing good enough. Just kind of catastrophizing her entire life based on one C in biology in her junior year. She says that she's never had a plan, never had the idea that she was going to kill herself, just that maybe people would be better off if she wasn't around being anxious and stressing everybody out. So I asked about the very first time she felt anxious, and the answer I get 95% of the time is middle school. Sometime between 5th grade and 8th grade. I know middle school is still sometimes considered elementary school, but 5th grade to 8th grade, that's where issues typically arise in our children and our adolescents, because that's the time in their lives where they start to develop the most, where they are coming into their own, hormones are raging, they're either developing in a aesthetically pleasing way, or they're developing in their awkward, or they're not developing, and everybody around them is growing and getting taller and getting more confidence, and they're just not moving at the pace that their peers are moving, and their peers exploit that, and they point it out, and they make them feel bad, and they pick on them. Middle school, junior high, apparently sucks. I mean, I was in middle school and junior high, but I never felt suicidal. I did get picked on. Don't confuse me saying I never felt suicidal with, I must have had a great middle school experience. I got picked on. I was 5'10" in 7th grade. 7th and 8th grade. I think I stopped growing middle of maybe my freshman or sophomore year. But I was one of the tallest people in the school, period. I mean, I was tall as many teachers. And I wore size 10 shoes, and I got picked on for how tall I was, and I got picked on how big my feet were, and I got picked on for everything that I wore, it was all always getting picked on for something. But I had a lot of friends, and I guess I just didn't really let it bother me that I got picked on. Maybe I did, but maybe I didn't. I don't really remember. It didn't impact me, so maybe that's just it. It bothered me, but it didn't impact me. Because when I went home to friends, and I had friends at lunch, I had friends in my classes. So I didn't make my worth was not based on what other people thought about me or what they said about me. That was something that I learned early on, thanks to my parents. So that's something that I think a lot of kids don't get these days. A lot of kids do get it. I mean, there are a lot of kids out there who don't have to deal with social pressure or, being compared to other people. And there are a lot of kids that do. And I think the kids that aren't being compared to someone else, and the kids who are being told that you are enough and do your best, do a good job, and that's what matters, as long as you're trying, and then you're not going to be punished for not getting straight A's. The kids who are encouraged to get A's, but understand that you can't get an A in every class because you don't grasp every subject as well as you grasp other subjects. And I guess that those are the kids who don't really feel like they shouldn't be here, or that they're a burden, or maybe they should be gone and people would be happier without them. At any rate, we talked about middle school being where she was getting picked on because she was heavy and her siblings were not. Her sisters are apparently very attractive, and they were not in the same grade as her, but her sister's friends had siblings who saw them and would pick on her because she didn't look like them. And that's where it started. And seeing how well they were doing in high school when she was in 5th grade, and seeing how well they were doing just everywhere, that's where it started. And her parents never explicitly said to her, why can't you be like your sister? But she would bring home a B or a C. And, well, your sister had that teacher and she had an A, what's the problem? So parents, if you're doing that, please stop doing that, because every kid is different. Every kid learns differently. Please stop comparing your children. And to my young viewers, the kid who is being compared to an older sibling, if your parent says that to you, there's nothing wrong with you looking at them and saying, hey, Mom, I get it. Dad, I understand that so-and-so, your sister, your brother had this teacher and they did well in it, but we're not all the same. We all learn differently, and this particular class is not my strong suit. Just because I didn't get an A doesn't mean I have failed. If there's no F, it's not a failure. If there's no D, it's not a failure. A C is okay. A C is passing, and I will try harder. But if this is the best that I can do with what I have, and I'm trying my hardest, and the best I can do is a C, I really wish that would be enough for you. You can say that to your parent and it not be disrespectful, and it not be derogatory, and it not be out of place. It's you advocating for yourself and letting your parents know that their words hurt, and comparisons hurt. That's why people have low self-worth in our society, because comparisons hurt. She doesn't need to go impatient. She has no plan to kill herself. She just has this sad, hopeless feeling based on the anxieties that she's having from being picked on, and the anxiety of her future, and really zooming out too far. She's not zoomed in enough on now. She's looking 5 years ahead of herself and looking at what she's not going to have based on what's happening today, versus a C is passing. Next year I'll try again, and I will get into college because I have mostly A's and B's. Her parents are comfortable with her staying home, not needing to go impatient. They want counseling services, so they express that they will be following through with our program. She's deflected. Her diagnosis, that's what I should probably start talking about with what I diagnose these people with, in our brief discussions. Or maybe not, maybe I won't, because our diagnoses change. We do have to put a preliminary diagnosis. Typically, people are struggling with adjustment issues. Depending on the severity of the symptoms, some of our clients really do struggle with chronic depression. I mean, some of the kids are really severe, and they've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder since they were 9 years old because of how severe their symptoms are. And this girl, of course, was none of that. It was an adjustment issue. So I won't get into the details of diagnoses because, again, they're preliminary and they can change. So she for sure is dealing with some adjustment symptoms with anxiety. So with this particular case, I'm comfortable saying that I just diagnosed her with generalized anxiety. With how long she's been dealing with it, the severity of the symptoms, and what she experiences when she wakes up, I did diagnose her with generalized anxiety. So in terms of if I was the counselor assigned to work with her, what would I do? We would go back to what happened in middle school. I would really want to give her the platform to talk through that. Trauma is a spectrum. So I could watch somebody walk into traffic and almost get hit by a car, but then pull back at the last second and not die, not get injured. And that's traumatic for me because I saw this person almost get hit. They were not paying attention, and I saw the end result of what would have happened had they not, in the split second later, stepped off the street and back onto the sidewalk. That could be severely traumatic for me. A fifth grader who's being bullied because she's not as pretty as her sisters, and who gets a C in her class, and her parents say, "Why is this so hard for you? Your sister could do this no problem." That can be traumatic. A person who witnesses a parent or a loved one being abused by another person, whether it's their biological other parent or a step parent or the boyfriend or girlfriend or their non-binary friend of their parent beating their parent, is traumatic. Witnessing a murder is traumatic. Witnessing sexual abuse, being the victim of sexual abuse, these are all traumas. It's a spectrum. It's not a trauma pie. So just because she has a little trauma doesn't mean that it's not a big trauma in her eyes. So we don't compare traumas. It's a spectrum, and we assess the severity of the symptoms related to the trauma. So if her trauma of being picked on in fifth grade for her appearance and her insufficient academic achievements was enough for her to ruminate on this and to find herself with a racing heartbeat and unable to focus and concentrate on anything, even after a nap which is supposed to be restorative and restful. You're supposed to wake up refreshed, not picking up where you left off before you took the nap. That's where I would start. Let's go back to fifth grade. Tell me about the things that your parents said to you. Tell me some of the things that the kids at school said to you. Some of the negative things that have really stuck with you over the years. We would talk about those things, how they impacted her, why she thinks they lasted and stuck so long? Why is she still able to remember in such great detail the experiences and the things that were said to her? We'd start there. Then we'd spend a lot of time running through these statements. I would be tracking them, running through the statements and working on challenging them. These are the things that were said to you. You're not as pretty as your sister. Is this true? What do you look at? Can you look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see? Do you feel good about yourself? Do you think you're pretty? Because nobody else's opinion matters. Nobody else's opinion matters. Don't you ever forget that. If you look in the mirror and you like what you see, then you are enough. You like what you see, you're pretty. There's nothing wrong with being confident. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, you don't have to like how I look, but I like how I look. Now, of course, if you're walking around in spandex thongs and you're wearing clothes that are very, very tight and they're not fitting well, and you're putting on makeup and you kind of do look like a clown, it doesn't mean you're not pretty. It doesn't make you unattractive. It just probably means that your judgment's a little off and we need to work on some judgment. But that doesn't mean that you're not pretty and you're not attractive and you're not worth it. What is pretty? That's another one that's on a spectrum. What's beautiful to some is not beautiful to others. Having hair like mine, a lot of people don't like this hair. It's not professional. It's not clean. It's not attractive. Those are the things that I've heard people say, that I've had people say to me. Does it stop me from wearing my hair this way? No, because I love my hair. I love how it fits on me. It's my look. I'm not hurting anybody. My hair doesn't stink. There's not bugs in my hair. There's not dandruff and lice and whatever else, all over me. I can wear a black shirt and there's nothing on my shirt. My hair and my hygiene is good. My hair is clean. So you don't like it, look the other way, but it's clean and I'm going to wear it. That's the kind of confidence that we need to instill in our children, parents. To the parents that are listening, to the older siblings that are listening, to my listeners. It's hard to instill your own confidence if somebody is not backing you up. But even if you have one person backing you up and saying, you know what, yes, you do look nice. I think you're pretty. Take the compliment. Don't dismiss it. You're just saying that because you're my friend. People don't have to say nice things to each other. And the fact that we have so many people being mistreated and bullied and picked on and nitpicked on in middle school and high school and even as adults, inside their own homes, at school, at playgrounds, at camps, all of these experiences happen because it's a lot easier to pick up the negative and to talk bad about somebody for people for whatever reason. Socially, it's just easier to be an asshole than it is to give somebody a compliment. So when somebody gives you a compliment, take it. It's genuine. No one's going out of their way to be nice just for the sake of, well, maybe I should just give her a compliment because whatever. No, people don't care. People don't care about each other. That is the state of affairs. And nobody can argue that with me, because if it was not the case, if people cared about each other, our social climate would not be what it is. It sucks right now. So I would work with her on building her own self-worth, giving herself compliments, affirmations, picking, for every one negative comment she gives to herself, I would require her to come up with 3 positive things to say. And then we would work on it's called cognitive behavioral therapy, where we would work on challenging those distortions. And her homework would be, write down every time you say something negative about yourself. And then we're going to bring that here and we're going to work on it. We would do that for several weeks. And over the time of us working on that, the idea is that the first time she brought in her sheet, she'd probably have 50 negative comments that she said about herself. And as the weeks go by, she finds less and less things to say negatively about herself. And that list goes down from 50 to 30 to 27 to 20. Maybe we hold it 15 for a while. But if we get from 30 negative or 50 negative comments a day to 15 negative comments a day, and they're not even severe, we get to the place where we're just like, oh, goodness, you're such a slob, you make a mess, you're so clumsy. Those things are easily worked through. I want to see her stop saying stuff like, I don't need to be here, I don't want to be here, I'm in the way, I'm a burden. those comments have to stop, and they will stop. When you start to become aware of the things that you're saying about yourself, and you start to really understand the negative impact of those comments, major change is possible. We would work on communicating with our parents. So just like I suggested to all my young listeners, you tell your mom or dad or whoever is comparing you to somebody else that we're all different, we all learn differently. I'm doing my best, and I wish that was enough. I would encourage her to say that to her family. We would probably have a couple of family sessions, 1 or 2 family sessions where I was able to facilitate that conversation for her so she felt supported. And it wasn't even like her parents were doing it out of malice. This wasn't them telling her she's nothing, worthless, you were a mistake. That's not the kind of thing that's happening. But parents don't even often understand how powerful their words are. And a statement as simple to them as, your sister did this, why are you struggling with this same teacher? Both of them had this teacher. A statement that seems harmless like that to them is not harmless, and it sticks. So psychoeducation, I would teach them about how the adolescent brain latches on to statements that come from the people in their lives who have status: parents, grandparents, teachers, best friends, peers. Some adolescents' peers have more power over them than their parents and their families do. So if a peer says, "God, you really don't look nice in that, you should lose some weight," the kid's gonna internalize that, and then they're gonna start starving themselves, and it will reverberate back into their home life. And it shouldn't, but it does happen. And lastly, we would learn about what it means to be anxious, helping her understand how her anxiety came to be, going back from 5th grade, and how the mind works, and how we focus on negative, and how we're conditioned to constantly be on the defense in how we present ourselves and how we function within a group. And comparisons start at a very early age, and they go through school. Teachers compare students. They do it all the time. Maybe they don't mean to. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they really do intend on comparing their students, and they call out the ones who are doing well, and so-and-so got a perfect score, and that's why there's no curve. Stuff like that. And you are blatantly calling out the ones who are doing better, the best, and you're ruining the self-worth of the kids who didn't do so well. Some kids didn't do well because they didn't study. And you know what? That's a natural consequence of not studying. But some kids study all the time, and they still don't grasp a topic. So to have a teacher that is consistently, so-and-so did so great, and, what happened with the rest of y'all? I had teachers growing up who, when we would take a test, people coming off of a tollway, one of the places where they scan your iPass so you can be on the toll. Car just cut in front of the car in front of me, and they slammed their brakes. And there's a guy coming up next to me who's trying to cut in front of me, and it's a construction zone. Goodness gracious, I hate this. I hate this commute. People are so reckless. Anyway, I had a teacher who, when we would take major tests, not just like a little quiz on the topic that we learned, but like the tests, the big ones. We would take them, she would go grade them, and when we would come back into class the next day, this was, the time period where we stayed in one classroom with our teacher. I think this was what grade was this? I believe this was 5th grade. 5th grade, she would put the scores of what everybody got. So she'd have a range. 100%, would be the first one. 90 to 89. 90 to, 89. And then 80 to 79. She'd break them down that way, and she'd put what you scored. And she'd hand your test back to you, and you would see, I got a 72, but 17 people out of the 25 of us got 89s, or in that range. The 100% was 1 or 2. And nobody failed, or the one person who failed now sees that they're the only person who failed. That kind of thing is devastating. It's a knock and a shock to the system. It is a negative impact on my intelligence. Now I feel like I'm not smart enough. Why can't I understand this, but everybody else is getting it? If you are a teacher who does that, please do all of us a favor, and who work in mental health with children and adolescents, who are working with suicidal kids, please stop doing that shit. Really. Their grade is their business. If you're that concerned about what they got, then you have every right to pull them aside. Not in front of the other kids. Reach out to their parent and let them know, hey, let's say we have a one-on-one with you and your parents about your score. You're the only person in the class. No, don't even say that. Your score was not, you didn't pass. Don't even say you're the only person. Your score was not passing, and I'd like to have a sit down with you and your parents to see what I can do to help. What am I not doing? Because you know what? It is your responsibility to teach. So if a kid's not grasping something, there's probably there's another factor, I'm sure, impacting their ability to pick up on the subject. But that's your responsibility to teach them. So if they might need 1 or 2 nights outside of class where you devote 15 to 20 minutes giving them some extra guidance one-on-one, do that. If it's the difference between them failing and them getting a C, give them the 15 minutes. I understand that our school systems are not what they need to be, and low-income schools have overcrowding. But the schools that are not low-income, that have no problem with their funding, who have plenty of resources at their disposal, help the kids. And the schools, even the schools that are overcrowded, and the teachers who don't have resources and all of that, find it in your heart to give this kid 15 minutes of your time once a week outside of class. If you can help them, in a big major way, please do so. That would pretty much be the focus of what we would work on over that 90 days, trying to see if I can help her build some confidence as she goes into her senior year. She was a really good kid. She's very intelligent. I know that she was going through a rough time at that point, but it's just because she didn't know how to express herself in an effective way. Those are the kinds of cases that I like the most, because they are get in, get out, this kid's gonna be fine. It's the cases where there's a lot of deep-seated problems, extended history of trauma, extended history of abuse, long periods of time where this person is struggling with depression and anxiety. Not that I don't like those cases, they just are, they weigh on me a little bit more, because it's really, really hard to see a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 9-year-old who doesn't want to be alive because their parent didn't build them up. And that is the parent's responsibility. If you have kids, it's your responsibility to build your child up. Make them a productive and confident, not overly confident to the point where they're an asshole, but build your kid up enough to where they can go into a situation and say, I can do this. Not to the point where they're like, oh, this is a cakewalk. Y'all look at me and listen to me. I'm hot shit. I can do everything. No, that's not what we want. We don't want a sea of narcissists. But we do want our kids to be confident. We want our kids to be humble. There's nothing wrong with having a valid view of your self-worth. There's nothing wrong with looking highly on yourself and what you're capable of. But also knowing that there's always room to learn, always room to grow, and that nobody's perfect. So you're going to make mistakes, and other people are going to make mistakes. And to treat them with respect and give them the space that they need to make the mistake and to learn and grow from it. I think that the next video that I'm going to do is going to really just focus on this topic with parents. Because there's a lot that needs to be said to not all parents. Not all parents are doing this thing where they're not nurturing their children's emotions. But emotions are real. And I have heard the statement from a parent, feelings aren't facts. And it's one of the darkest things I've ever heard said to a child. Those are your feelings. Your feelings are not the facts. That's a really harsh way to say something that I think there's a better way to say it. I understand what the parent was getting at, but you're an adult and your kid is not, and they don't have the processing power to view things through the lens that you're viewing them through. The hardest thing in a teenager's life is going to be their experiences, is ideally their experience at school, their peers, their education. But there are a lot of teenagers and adolescents and children whose hardest thing that they're dealing with is abuse, abandonment, neglect, trauma, poverty. So their feelings are facts, because it is a fact that they're experiencing this thing, this emotion, the response to a stimuli, something outside of them, elicited an emotion so severe, so significant, that it had the ability to make them not want to live. That is a fact. So don't devalue your child's feelings. Do not shame them for feeling. Every emotion deserves to be felt, but we'll talk about that at another time. If you have questions about this video or today's narrative, today's story, please leave a comment underneath. Visit my website, ewaillinois.org, EWAILLINOIS.org, and visit the Traveling Therapist tab on my website. Leave me a comment there. I will always have the videos posted on my website too, because not everybody who I work with goes on YouTube. A lot of times people find me through Psychology Today, and they'll look at my website from there. So I want them to also have an idea of what I am focusing on, and my belief systems and all that good stuff. Sometimes it's a good way for people to determine whether or not they want to work with me, and I want them to have a real perspective on who I am. So what better way to know my thoughts and feelings and my views on things than to listen to a video blog that I shot in the comfort of my vehicle, alone in my car on my way to work. My truest, purest thoughts, unedited, no judgment on people who don't do things the same way that I do. But I'm in a helping profession, and it's not a judgment if I say that you telling your kid that facts aren't feelings is wrong. It's not a judgment. It is an assessment based on the fact that when I hear a parent say that to their kid, 9 times out of 10, that kid's gonna cross my path in a suicidal way. Whether it's a thought, gesture, attempt, a plan, feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. Nobody deserves to feel that way. So don't make it so, parents. Don't add to don't fuel the fire that is development and adolescence and growth and finding yourself as a teenager. Don't fuel the fire with negativity. Set the foundation so the fire doesn't spread, that instead it burns bright in a controlled way. We don't want the flame to go out, but we also don't want there to be a raging fucking forest fire to where your kid can't control their emotions because they've experienced so many different emotions and no one was there to help guide them through how to manage them. Just be mindful. Ask your kid how their day was. Ask your kid, is somebody bothering you at school today? Did somebody say something to you today that you're still thinking about, that stuck with you for a while? Just give a shit, please. Just give a fuck about your kids. But until next time, you guys have a good day. Take care. If you have a topic you want me to talk about, please let me know. I thrive on user feedback. I really am happy to see how this is growing. The inquiries I get through the website, they've been awesome. So thank you. And spread the video, share the video. If you have a friend who's dealing with a problem and I've talked about a topic that's relevant to them, if you have a parent who has a kid who's dealing with a situation like this, share it. The more people have access to the knowledge that I have, the experiences, I pepper in things that I would talk about in counseling, but I don't go into a full counseling session, and I definitely don't talk like this in my counseling sessions. This is my private forum. I don't curse at or to the people that I work with. That's just my time here. It's how I vent. This is my open processing and letting go of things that I work on with families. But the people who work with me know that I'm nurturing in session, so I'm not worried about it. But yeah, pass it on. The more the merrier. I'll see you guys in my next upload. Be well.